Karen calls my service dog fake, instantly regrets it. The flickering candle light danced across Sarah's face, highlighting the curve of her smile. Happy anniversary, babe, she murmured, reaching across the linen-draped table to squeeze my hand. The ambience at La Fleur, normally a calming balm to my frayed nerves, was doing little to soothe the anxiety clawing at my chest. Too many people, too close together. Gus, bless his furry soul, was a solid anchor, a warm weight pressed against my leg under the table, his rhythmic breathing a grounding force. We'd barely made it through the appetizers when she arrived. Brenda. She swept in like a storm front, a whirlwind of expensive perfume and righteous indignation, her voice already carrying across the meticulously arranged tables. Honestly, animals in a restaurant? What is this world coming to? Chad, a man who looked perpetually bewildered, trailed behind her, attempting a placating smile that quickly dissolved under Brenda's withering glare. Mark, the restaurant manager, a man whose carefully cultivated air of sophistication always seemed a little strained, hurried over, his face a mask of forced politeness. Madam, is there a problem? Brenda pointed a perfectly manicured finger directly at Gus, who, oblivious to the drama, was dozing peacefully. That dog, it's disgusting. I can't believe you allow it. Some of us are trying to enjoy a civilized evening. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. He's a service dog. He's allowed to be here. Brenda swung her gaze towards me, her eyes narrowing. Service dog, please, don't insult my intelligence. I've seen real service dogs. That thing is just a pet you're trying to sneak into a fancy restaurant. He's a fully trained service dog, Sarah interjected, her voice calm but firm. Liam has documentation. I reached into my bag, my hands trembling slightly. This was always the worst part. The explaining, justifying the constant scrutiny. I pulled out the laminated card and the paperwork from the organization that trained Gus. Mark took them, his eyes scanning the documents. Brenda, however, wasn't finished. Oh, please, anyone can print something off the internet these days. I bet you bought that online. You probably don't even have a disability. You just want the attention. Her voice was laced with venom, each word a tiny, stinging barb. That's not true, I mumbled, my heart pounding against my ribs. The familiar wave of panic began to rise, threatening to overwhelm me. The restaurant suddenly felt smaller, the noise louder, the faces around me blurry and hostile. Oh, I'm sure it is, Brenda sneered. Look at you, perfectly healthy. What are you claiming, you have some kind of invisible illness? That's just an excuse for lazy people who don't want to work. Chad shuffled his feet uncomfortably. Brenda, honey, maybe we should just... No, Chad, she snapped. I'm not going to be subjected to this. It's offensive. I'm sure other people feel the same way. She glanced around the restaurant, seeking validation. A few patrons avoided her gaze, while others looked on with a mixture of curiosity and disapproval. The world was starting to spin. My vision tunneled. Gus nudged my hand with his nose, sensing my distress. I focused on his warm, solid presence, trying to breathe. Ma'am, Mark said, his voice losing its earlier politeness. I've reviewed the documentation, and everything appears to be in order. The dog is allowed to be here. Perhaps you could lower your voice. Lower my voice? Brenda shrieked. I will not be silenced. This is outrageous. He's lying. He's faking it. She pulled out her phone. I'm going to expose you. I'm going to put this online so everyone can see what a fraud you are. She pointed the camera at me, the bright light intensifying my panic. Please stop. Sarah pleaded, her voice trembling slightly. You're upsetting him. But Brenda was on a roll, fueled by entitlement and self-righteousness. Look at him, so pathetic, trying to play the victim. Well, I'm not buying it. You're nothing but a scam artist. The dam inside me broke. The panic surged, a tidal wave of fear and humiliation. I couldn't breathe. My chest constricted and my vision blurred. The faces around me swam in a sea of distorted features, their whispers amplifying into a deafening roar. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. I was vaguely aware of Sarah's arm around me, her voice a soothing murmur against my ear. But the panic was too strong, too overwhelming. I gasped for air, my body shaking uncontrollably. The last thing I saw before everything went black was Brenda's triumphant smirk, the camera on her phone still pointed directly at my face. I woke up in the restaurant's back office, lying on a lumpy couch. Sarah was kneeling beside me, her face etched with worry. Gus was lying beside her, his head resting on my lap. Liam, are you okay? She asked, her voice soft. I managed a weak nod. What happened? You had a panic attack, she said. You passed out. I called my friend who works urgent care. He came here and helped you. The memory of Brenda's accusations flooded back, sharp and painful. The humiliation burned like acid. She filmed me, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Sarah's jaw tightened. I know, it's already online. She posted it. My heart sank. The thought of my most vulnerable moment being broadcast for the world to see was unbearable. I felt exposed, violated. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and dread. The video went viral. The comments ranged from supportive to downright vicious. Some people defended me, pointing out the importance of service dogs and the insensitivity of Brenda's actions. Others accused me of faking my disability, echoing Brenda's accusations. Some even sent hateful messages, threatening to expose me as a fraud. I barely left my apartment. Every notification on my phone sent a jolt of fear through me. My anxiety was through the roof. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't concentrate. My work suffered. I spent most of my time huddled on the couch, Gus by my side, trying to block out the world. Sarah was my rock. She took time off work to be with me, shielding me from the worst of the online hate and reminding me that I wasn't alone. She encouraged me to see my therapist, Dr. Evans, who helped me process the trauma and develop coping mechanisms. "You have to fight back, Liam," Sarah said one evening, her eyes filled with determination. "You can't let her get away with this. You can't let her define you." I hesitated. The thought of confronting Brenda again, of reliving the humiliation and anxiety, was terrifying. "I don't know if I can," I said, my voice trembling. "Yes, you can," Sarah said, squeezing my hand. "Not just for yourself, but for everyone who's ever been discriminated against because of their disability. You can be their voice." Her words resonated with me. I knew she was right. I couldn't let Brenda win. I couldn't let her silence me. We contacted Mr. Davies, a lawyer who specialized in disability rights. He listened patiently to my story, his eyes filled with understanding. "This is a clear case of defamation and harassment," he said. "We can sue her for damages. We can make her accountable for her actions." I took a deep breath. "I want to do it," I said. "I want to fight back." The legal process was long and arduous. Brenda refused to back down. She hired a high-powered lawyer and doubled down on her accusations, claiming that she was simply exercising her right to free speech. Mr. Davies was relentless. He gathered evidence, interviewed witnesses, and built a solid case against Brenda. He contacted the restaurant manager, Mark, who testified that Brenda had been disruptive and abusive. He obtained statements from other patrons who had witnessed the incident, confirming Brenda's aggressive behavior. He even tracked down other instances where Brenda had harassed disabled individuals in the past. Dr. Evans provided expert testimony about my anxiety and PTSD, explaining how Brenda's actions had exacerbated my condition. She emphasized the importance of Gus in managing my symptoms and the devastating impact of Brenda's false accusations. The case finally went to trial. The courtroom was packed with reporters and spectators. Brenda sat at the defense table, looking smug and self-assured. Chad sat beside her, his face pale and drawn. Mr. Davies delivered a powerful opening statement, outlining Brenda's malicious behavior and the devastating consequences it had had on my life. He painted a picture of a woman who believed she was above the law, a woman who was willing to inflict pain and suffering on others for her own amusement. Brenda took the stand and delivered a condescending and unremorseful testimony. She claimed that she had simply been concerned about public safety and that she had no intention of harming me. She accused me of exaggerating my symptoms and manipulating the system. Mr. Davies cross-examined her relentlessly, exposing the inconsistencies in her story and highlighting her pattern of entitled and discriminatory behavior. He presented evidence of her past transgressions, showing that she had a history of harassing disabled individuals. Sarah testified about my struggles with anxiety and PTSD, emphasizing the importance of Gus in managing my condition. She described the impact of Brenda's actions on my mental health and my ability to function in everyday life. Her testimony was emotional and compelling, leaving many in the courtroom in tears. Dr. Evans provided expert testimony about my diagnosis and the necessity of a service dog. She explained how Gus helped me manage my anxiety and PTSD, allowing me to live a more normal life. She testified that Brenda's actions had caused me significant emotional distress and had set back my recovery. The defense attorney attempted to discredit me and my witnesses, but Mr. Davies effectively countered their arguments. He presented a compelling case, proving that Brenda had acted maliciously and that her actions had caused me significant harm. The turning point in the trial came when Mr. Davies presented a video of Brenda harassing another disabled person in a grocery store. The video showed Brenda yelling at a woman in a wheelchair, accusing her of taking up too much space. The video was damning, exposing Brenda's true character and undermining her claim that she was simply concerned about public safety. After days of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. They found Brenda guilty of defamation, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They awarded me a significant settlement, covering my medical expenses, lost wages, and emotional distress. The courtroom erupted in applause. Sarah squeezed my hand, her eyes filled with tears of joy. Mr. Davies smiled, his face radiating satisfaction. Brenda sat at the defense table, her face pale and stricken. Chad looked at her with a mixture of pity and disgust. The judge delivered a scathing rebuke of Brenda's behavior, condemning her actions as discriminatory and harmful. He emphasized the importance of protecting the rights of disabled individuals and sending a clear message that discrimination would not be tolerated. The verdict was a victory, not just for me, but for all disabled individuals who have faced similar discrimination. It was a message that we would not be silenced, that we would not be bullied, and that we would fight for our rights. In the aftermath of the trial, Brenda's reputation was shattered. She faced public backlash and social ostracism. Many of her friends and acquaintances distanced themselves from her. She was shunned by the community. Chad finally left her, unable to tolerate her behavior any longer. He realized that she was a toxic influence in his life and that he needed to break free. I used the settlement money to pay for therapy and further my career. I became an advocate for disability rights, sharing my story and raising awareness about the challenges faced by disabled individuals. I spoke at conferences, wrote articles, and gave interviews. I used my platform to educate others about the importance of service dogs and the need for greater accessibility and inclusion. Brenda was eventually forced to issue a public apology, but her apology was perceived as insincere and self-serving. She continued to deny any wrongdoing and blamed me for her misfortune. Sarah and I continued to live our lives, stronger and more resilient after facing adversity. The experience strengthened our relationship and deepened our commitment to fighting for justice and equality. Years later, I was walking with Gus in the park when I saw Brenda sitting on a bench, alone and forgotten. She looked older, weathered, and defeated. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, but I quickly reminded myself of the pain and suffering she had caused me. I walked past her without saying a word, Gus trotting happily by my side. I knew that I had won, not just in the courtroom, but in life. I had stood up for myself, I had fought for my rights, and I had made a difference. And that was all that mattered. The fight was far from over, but on that day I felt a sense of peace and closure. I was finally free.